there is a connection there. There is something going on.
And awareness does not imply that it's his doing.
You're right. However, if you watch the eye connections, if you watch comments that are made, if you're reading between the lines here, Austin.
Dragon claw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
You hear that? You hear that one? Is that reading for the audio listeners?
I heard it loud and clear on my end.
Okay, it's a big first.
Big first.
Huge.
The biggest so far?
Well, okay. Huge first for the YouTube audience. And I'm going to try and rope in the audio listeners as well. Okay. So there's an old saying that if there's no seat on the council, just make your own council.
Also, where's
if there are no orbs to take and place before you at the table, get your own orbs. So what have we done? But we have gone to the internet and acquired for ourselves a pair of beautiful spheres, if I may say so.
They are stunning. It took us long. We took a while for us to decide on which ones we wanted.
Longer still for them to ship.
I think mine had a whole adventure getting here because it originally said 2-day shipping and then it took like 3 weeks to get here.
Yeah, well, maybe there still are drugs inside. We can crack it open one day and find out.
Well, that's going to happen on the last episode.
But let's mark the occasion. Episode 5 of Big Flying Lizards. We have formed the even smaller council.
Smallest of council.
With myself, Austin Snyder, and across from me, Bryce Wilson. I'm kind of going out of order because usually you would introduce this.
Well, I mean, this is Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie podcast. We are the hosts. Austin introduced us already.
So what do we do now?
We talk about dragons, Austin.
Okay. I mean, is that enough? Well, okay. No, because I wanted to satisfy the audio listeners here.
Okay,
so we only have to do this on this episode and just forevermore assume that these beautiful spheres are set before us. But would you do us the courtesy, Bryce, of describing the spheres?
So we have on my side of the table this beautiful blue, almost has a black-green tinge to it, and with a hint of orange has some orange veins going on, as well as some beautiful just white clouds. I don't know stones, so don't ask me what the actual material is. While on the other side of the table...
Wait, no. Try this on for size.
Okay.
The name of your sphere. Or I guess the name of the design, the pattern, whatever. Dark Neptune.
I like it. This is Dark Neptune.
But you have to name mine now.
Oh, shoot. Well,
give it. I want like counter programming. I want you to come up with the stupidest name possible.
All right. Well, yours, I will go ahead and describe. We've got a beautiful dark green going on. We can't talk when it's off of the meeting is canceled when you take it off.
No. So it's so what just happened there is I did pick up my orb to show the camera. I think the etiquette, we'll figure it out live. I think the etiquette is, if my stone isn't placed, I can't talk, but you still can because yours has been placed.
You're right. We'll get it. We'll get the rule. We'll get something etched into stone for it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go on mute here while I model the sphere.
All right,
watch out.
All right, so we've got this dark, beautiful green as well as a black that sort of just half and half codes it. And if you look carefully, you can see there are some purple splotches that just beautifully illustrate these very luscious council orbs. And, I really can't emphasize how excited we are to have. And from this day forth, I think yours is going to be called lettuce.
And I'm allowed to laugh because it has been replaced.
It has been replaced there.
Dark Neptune and lettuce.
Yep.
Set on the table. We're good to go. The even smaller council is in session. We are re-entering the studio apartment of the dragon.
We are.
To discuss House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 5.
We Light the Way. Or, as I want to change the name up, We Drip the Way. Because the drip in this episode, incredible.
Watch out. You've just been waiting for a wedding, haven't you?
Let me tell you, I've got some comments on some of the drip here.
Okay, well, let it slide. I'll let you take half an hour on this one. This episode, I would like to propose at some point we do like a wrap up at the end that's like top fits, because I feel like we discuss that every episode.
We do, but I think we already know which one's gonna be the drippiest drip. Corlys in his armor.
Oh, okay. If you want to stake your claim there, we'll discuss in the episode. Let's make a mental note that at the end we'll do top fit pick.
Fit pick. The season fit pick.
The episode fit pick. Rather.
Episode fit pick. All right.
And one runner up.
And a runner.
So you get two.
Okay.
Does that seem fair?
Per episode?
Yes.
Okay. I think we can work with that. Do we just want to dive into the story here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, we start out at Runestone, which is in the Eyrie.
Yeah, we meet two characters we have not seen before.
No, we have not. We meet our dear. Oh, I had his name. Why did I?
Two
know?
Royces.
Two Royces. It was Sir Gerald. I believe. Let me double check.
Yeah. I got it in the episode breakdown here.
Oh, perfect. I was.
What am I putting these together for?
Well, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
So Sir Gerald and Ray Royce.
Yeah.
Ray Royce or
Royce to Ray 9.
Mrs. Daemon Targaryen.
Yes.
And I mean, it's a short interaction, but you get the sense that she's sort of a loner. I don't know if you got really picked up on that, but that's sort of the vibe that I was getting, where she didn't really want the company to go out when she was hunting.
She's solo hunting.
She's solo hunting, which is dangerous in of itself, and just shows her prowess as a hunter.
I thought you were going to say as a woman.
No, as a hunter. And not only does she go hunting, but she goes a long distance. I think they make an emphasis to show like how far she's going off hunting. Like,
yeah, and Gerald makes a comment that she's going after some pretty big game.
Yep.
Because he's like, rabbits? Elk. Or
elk.
Or white hearts only.
Rabbits, that was my teenage years.
But yeah, she's going off solo, which becomes a bit of a problem in a few minutes here when she comes across a shady-looking fellow.
Yeah, and I think it's actually worth pointing out that she was able to recognize him straight away. So even though there's been very little familiarity between the two of them, I get the sense that before that they were married, especially since Viserys' wife is of the Vale, Daemon's probably quite familiar with Rhea. Again, this is pure speculation on my part because he's completely cloaked up. I mean, us rewatching it, we know who it is, but it's not like somebody would be able to know right away. But it's like, oh, husband.
Maybe he has a very particular smell.
Shit, there's still a distance to go, but I'll go with that.
Well, still, like, how often does Daemon shower? Question for the room.
Daemon's like a pretty boy, though. Like, I don't feel like Rhaenyra would be into him if he stank.
Fair. And I mean, he's so clean cut, like the haircut. Before he was reborn, like pre-cat crab feeder kill, once a year. Post-crab feeder kill, once a week.
I mean, he doesn't have to spend so much time washing his hair now.
But he's looking like a Sith Lord.
Yes.
Is his intro in this scene.
Very much Sith Lord vibes. And the entire time she's just throwing insults at him, like just letting him have it. Now, he deserved it. Like she was just throwing the words that he has said about the veil.
And I think that is worth zooming in on for just a second, that because he has thrown mad shade about the physical appearance of this person, which I really don't want this to be a podcast with two guys just like talking about how women look.
Yeah.
But I'll simplify by saying the comments that he made based on, like, now that we've seen who the person is he's talking about, absolutely preposterous.
Yeah, completely unjustified.
Yes.
Like, I know that a Game of Thrones and Hollywood tends to cast beautiful people as ugly people, but I don't think that's the route that they were going in this.
No.
Like, I think it's just Daemon again being Daemon. Either A, not being happy about being able to pick his own wife, or B, just Daemon being Daemon, not being happy with what he's got. So
Yeah, he is kind of a perpetually unhappy person. But it does just open up a lot of questions which we're never going to get an answer to. That's like, well, what was the problem here? But, alas.
I mean, you do get the sense that she made some comments completely justified in the moment, but you don't know if these comments have been the entire time during their marriage. She's just like essentially said that she would never sleep with him. Like, and again, if that's been how her attitude has been towards the entire marriage, I could see Daemon over here getting red pilled into.
Oh, jeez. It didn't read to me that she didn't want to like get down with him, at least to, fulfill their duties and produce heirs or whatever. The comments that she made in this scene read to me like he was the problem. That because she teases him. She's like, "Oh, have you come here to finally consummate our marriage?"
Well, but then she makes the very next comment. She's like, "I don't even think the sheep would want to be with you, though. Like, because like something along the lines that she definitely doesn't want to, and she doesn't even think the sheep would want to."
That's right. Because before he had made a comparison that the sheep were her people's sheep were more preferable to the women than the women.
Correct. And it is like he is being creepy as hell in this scene, like because he's not saying anything.
It's another wordless Daemon scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like she's like slowly throughout the conversation realizing that what's actually going on, because she makes the comment like, "Oh, are you going to kill the heir so you can get the spot back?" And then it like clicks into her because he's slowly approaching her. And I think it's just one of the most like unfortunate, like, I don't want to say accidents, but like,
well, doesn't he kind of like spook the horse?
He does spook the horse, but what's the likelihood of the horse completely falling back, landing on her, and she breaking her back?
Yeah, if that was Daemon's plan all along, then goof. Like the odds of that going according to plan, if that's what he wanted to happen, again, preposterous.
Yeah, and it didn't look like he had any swords on him or any sort of weapons. But again, like, so the horse falls on her, she breaks her back, and he goes over and like sort of tests and sees that she has no feeling in her arms, so showing that she's completely paralyzed. And she makes a comment that sort of emphasizes this theory that Daemon is impotent,
He's having some trouble in the bedroom.
saying that he can't finish, which
Doesn't sit well.
doesn't sit well at all. And he decides to show her how well he can finish by picking up a rock. And, I know that it can be corny, but I'm a sucker for those cutscenes where it's like he's walking over with the rock and all of a sudden, and it shows the fish head getting cut off. It's gruesome, it's disturbing, but at the same time, it's like a little poetic. Which,
yeah, and I like this opening. Now, getting into this episode, I would like to keep us at a better pace
yes,
than the last time we recorded.
yes,
But this is a big part for me. So I have a couple things on this opening section
yes,
to dig into. Number one, I did a little research. Again, we are not book readers, so this is just from the internet, but a little Googling revealed to me that this whole bit is extrapolated from like one sentence in the book. That's like, this lady, sorry, Ray Royce, sounds like a superhero, like had an accident on her horse and died. That's all that is in the source material.
Yes.
So the creators, the writers of this episode have extrapolated, okay, well, Daemon was probably behind that.
well,
which makes sense to why they don't have any dialogue from him. And also, I think it's like kind of a cool flourish. And I think it turns into a interesting progression of character, because the way it's presented, you don't necessarily know that he's there to kill her.
yeah,
Probably, I would say, but it's not confirmed. Again,
Yeah.
he doesn't say a word the entire exchange.
and from what I understand, George R. R. Martin has made several instances in the book where it's very much, it could be going a certain direction. It very much leaves the reader to interpret what's going on. And the showrunners take these instances and run with them in particular. So it's definitely worth noting that it very well could have been Daemon, or it could, like, the show
for the continuity of the show.
yeah, it's definitely Daemon, but we don't know about in the books. Like,
Yeah.
but it's definitely worth assuming that it was Daemon in the books.
Right. But to finish my point, we don't know for sure that that's what he was there to do. I think it probably was. But it's not confirmed, so it keeps us in the audience slightly in suspense there. And also doesn't make it like an overt, like this guy just came and murdered his wife. But it sort of softens that, but does represent like a progression in his, what I'd say, turn to the dark side. Again, Sith Lord vibes, to where he's, even if he wasn't there to do that, he takes advantage of the opportunity.
Yes, he gets the job done.
Which to me reads as like him like truly reaching villain status.
Yes.
Like, he has done some pretty despicable stuff in the show so far, but this is the most heinous act in my
yes.
mind.
And it's, again, we're not, this is not an episode of Daemon defending. There's going to be no Daemon defending in this episode for what he did there.
Team Green, baby.
no, definitely not. But is there anything else you want to cover with that particular opening, or?
That's it. I liked it. I thought it was a good extrapolation from the book. I think it was a nice progression of character. Strong opening. Let's keep going.
Oh, for sure. It takes us to a boat that seems to be sailing to Dragonstone, not Dragonstone, to Driftmark.
So this could be out of order. Is that before Otto and Alicent scene?
Yes, it is before. So
Okay, let's do that.
it's very short, but I think I loved this boat. Like, each shot that we got of the boat, it was, again, we fully admitted that we're suckers for Pirates of the Caribbean 3. Like, that's, well,
And this is a nautical, not like nautical heavy, but
The heaviest.
Yeah, a lot of nautical elements, and I'm here for all of it.
Yes. And like the boat itself was like a black wood. The sails were black with the Targaryen symbol on it. And then it had the golden dragon out in the front. Like I was really digging that. And we are seeing that Viserys is not well. He is seasick. He is having a very miserable time. And there's a new guy to the right.
With a particular pin on his, what would you call that? His jacket.
On his jerkin, I think. Lyonel.
Oh!
Lyonel got the promotion.
Yes!
He is now assistant to the regional king of Westeros.
And dare I say, short of Lyonel becoming king, the best thing that could possibly happen for the realm.
I don't think anybody could have said it better than Corlys later in the show saying no better man deserves the position. And that was the most accurate statement in the entire show to this point. Maybe to ever in the show.
Maybe ever. And it's just the victory lap on the whole Otto getting dismissed situation.
Yes. He literally goes from the most conniving member to the one who is most focused on, one, helping Viserys, and two, well, first helping the realm and two, helping Viserys. Like him just even taking out the kerchief for him, like just showing him that he's a genuine good guy and trying to be there for the king.
Not just that, but there's a scene later in this episode where Viserys is like talking about his legacy and like he's expressing some things, and Lyonel like pushes back.
Yes.
Like he's one who's willing to like argue. Well, not so much argue, but like be straight with the king. And he's demonstrated that in episodes leading up to this, but we get a reminder later in this that he's a man of integrity.
Yes.
And like a perfect diplomat, but also a man like he's going to be like an honest perspective for the king, and rather than like the lickspittles. And then
no, I do have some thoughts on it, but I definitely want to save it for when we get to that scene. But I do agree, and it's something that I really enjoy about him. There's not really too much other than they're just getting ready to go to Driftmark, and they know it's a big deal. But we go back to the Red Keep,
where Otto is having a terrible, no good, very bad day. It's a downpour, Rashomon style. He is on his way out.
He has a horse, not even a carriage.
Damn. Can't catch a break.
I love it. But Alicent comes out and she's expressing that she doesn't want her father to leave. And rather than being like a comforting father, he completely turns it around and like says, this is your fault. Like it is blaming Alicent for his departure. And
asshole move,
manipulator move, sociopath move. And Alicent calls him out rightfully about trying to get Aegon on the throne. And Otto makes a line that, again, and if you don't mind, I want to go deeper on this conspiracy that I brought because of this particular line. He says, the king will die. It may be in months or years, but he will not live to be an old man. This ties back to the Old Town conspiracy that he is in cahoots with the Maesters. Supposedly the Maesters hate dragons. They hate they hate magic, and dragons are creatures of magic. They're trying to, the conspiracy is they're actively trying to get rid of the dragons, but the Targaryens are tied to dragons. So they're trying to find ways to get rid of the Targaryens as well. So the conspiracy that I think goes is that the Maesters purposely made it so Emma died. They could have saved her, but didn't. And which means that he would have to remarry, who he remarries Alicent to become a Hightower Targaryen.
And then they get to slowly poisoning the king because they're in charge of his entire care.
Well, if you remember, the other maester is like, hey, I have these remedies that we can use to help. And the Grand Maester is like, no, the leeching will be enough. Coincidence?
Listen, I'm not sure that I buy it. I think you just hate Otto.
I do hate Otto, but why make that comment though? Like, why make the comment, the king will die? It may be months or years, but he will not live to be an old man.
Because he's in horrible health.
He might.
You saw his arm. Like, that didn't happen over the voyage. Like, Otto is aware of the circumstances of the king.
Fair. But at the same time, he seems to, there is a connection there. There is something going on.
And awareness does not imply that it's his doing.
You're right. However, if you watch the eye connections, if you watch comments that are made, if you're reading between the lines here, Austin.
Okay, if you want me to admit that it's a possibility, if you want me to give you permission to see it that way, sure. But the exact same quote I wrote down as well, because I feel like in this scene, Otto's really telling it as it is. And yes, I agree he is a man who is serving his own purposes in most instances, but as he breaks it down to Alicent, like, this is the reality of the situation. Like, he, again, taking out his own ambitions in there, he sees the game for what it is, where he says, okay, so he finishes the quote that's like, the king will die, it may be months or years, but he will not live to be an old man. And if Rhaenyra succeeds him, war will follow. Do you understand? The realm will not accept her, and to secure her claim, she'll have to put your children to the sword. She'll have no choice. That's the game. And like, again, he's being removed from the table, basically, the gameplay, but he's not wrong. So the one thing that I will give you, because Otto's a snake.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as bothered by him as you. I think, because I also just respect a strong player. But the only like truly conniving element of his whole plot that's confirmed, again, you can believe whatever you want, is that he placed Alicent as a prospective marriage candidate for Viserys.
Not only placed it, but immediately. We can assume that he was planting this seed like the day of the funeral.
Yes. Not a great look.
Not a great look.
And if he hadn't done that, then maybe Viserys wouldn't have had more children. I think he probably would have regardless. But so it's, you can tie it back. I mean, it's the way that it is. So Otto does bear some burden of responsibility for creating this mess where now there is a son born to the king that has maybe a valid claim to the throne, and that's going to create all these tensions. But given the circumstances as it is, he seems to see the situation for what it is. And I actually think that I agree with Otto in this situation, that if you want to avoid war, Aegon is a more reasonable choice.
I respect that, but let me just, again, like, this is sort of a conversation that I wanted to have, and this sort of bleeds together. And I think you're of the opinion that if Viserys was to die the next day and Rhaenyra would be named queen, would she kill her siblings?
Freaking 18-year-old Rhaenyra? I don't think so, but we'll check in next episode.
Okay. Well, but here's the thing too. I think Otto is like, yes, he's painting the realistic picture, but I think he's also not mentioning that he could have very much an influence on all of that not happening. If he was willing to be like, no, we are going to back Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is the queen. They have Old Town, which is the power in the East. Is it the East? They're the power in the realm down there. They have the Baratheons in the Stormlands. The Stormlands is a very populated area in a very powerful house with a lot of realms. They have the Velaryons. They have the largest, like they mentioned, they have all the boats and they have half of the dragons, and they're the wealthiest house. I don't see any, like, if there is a war, I don't see it being a bloody war if it's some of the most powerful houses against some rogue states.
So you're saying that if he lended his support to Rhaenyra, then it dissolves the whole conflict.
Yes.
That's actually a really good point.
Like, he's being like, well, if Rhaenyra, they won't accept. Like, no, you won't accept Rhaenyra. That's what the undertone that I'm reading is, that he will not accept Rhaenyra as the queen. It's not that the realm won't, because we already know the Baratheons are tied to the Targaryens because they have Targaryen blood within them. So if there's a united Targaryen house, the Baratheons are going to stay with the Targaryens. The Velaryons are going to be involved again because they know that they're getting married in. Like, they know that that relationship is going to be there. The High Towers, powerful, wealthy. Who's going to stand between them?
I do think that you're discounting the woman problem a little bit.
It's
like, yeah, there's the loyalty to House Targaryen, but baked into that is like a loyalty to tradition.
Here, I'm not arguing that there would be conflicts and people rising up. What I'm pushing out is Otto is thinking that there would be this ginormous, which there might be a ginormous conflict, but I think he's underplaying how much of a responsibility he would have by completely backing. Because if he was like, no, Rhaenyra is the queen, like, my son will be, not my son, my grandson will be named, and just accept that. The problem is Otto is not willing to accept that. I firmly believe, again, I know I've got Otto hate. I hate Otto. Love the actor, hate Otto, but I really don't think that I really do think that if he was willing to just say no, like, we need to back Rhaenyra, there would be a lot of people that'd be fighting, but it wouldn't be this all-out war. It'd be more like putting out fires across the realm. There'd be probably issues for 5, maybe 10 years, but not major conflicts where the entire realm is torn apart.
I'm with you. I still think it's not as simple as that, but you definitely do have a point that is Otto's issue, that he's not willing to entertain another option.
Yes. And we'll never know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm just saying that things might kind of end up playing out somewhat close to what he predicted in this scene. And maybe that could have been avoided with the other, but based on the way things are trending, I think that he's demonstrating some great awareness.
Is he predicting it, or is he self-fulfilling it?
80-20.
All right. Well, I think we dived into that, unless there's any last points you want to make with that.
No, good discussion.
Good discussion.
I enjoyed that.
We come in and, I'm as much as I love Corlys, he's doing some low blows here. He didn't give any welcoming committee for the king.
He's tired.
Yeah, it's the only people that are out there to greet him is Laenor and Joffrey. Well, we don't know Joffrey's name yet, but we see Laenor and somebody who's dueling with Laenor. Those are the only people there.
Yeah, and that just seems like circumstantial. Like, they just so happen to be there, like, oh, the king.
And then Laena comes out greeting him, and they, like, Lyonel, being our good boy Lyonel, he's over here and he's like, "What? Where's Lord Corlys? He's supposed to greet." And like you said, he's tired. And to me, I just viewed the king as just like, I'm exhausted. Let's just get this over with. Like,
yeah, because Lyonel is upset, but Viserys is like immediately like, it's not a big deal. Like, let's keep going.
Here's the thing.
And it might just be like he's seasick as part of it. But
I don't know if he's necessarily like, it's not a big deal. I think he's just like, it is what it is. Let's, like, because you get some there's still some hard feelings that he has towards Corlys that that we'll dive into later. But we go back to King's Landing.
Okay. Yeah. So, and this is shortly after that conversation between Alicent and Otto. She's in the Godswood, and she encounters a curious character.
Lord Larys. Larys?
I've been saying Lars. This show, man. Hey, everybody. This is Austin from the future here. Having realized that I misspoke and the proper pronunciation on this character's name is not Lars, but rather Larys. And there's nothing I can do about that now. We are going to mispronounce that name through the entirety of this episode and continue to do so through episode 8. So sorry about that, but I just thought I'd get ahead of it here. I hope you don't mind too much. Now back to the show.
Lord Lars. And, you know, I feel bad because I hate Otto so much, but there's just like a level of like, this guy is so like scummy that I almost respect it. Like,
Okay. I'm glad to hear that because can I tell you what's written in my this is the only note I have on this scene.
Let's hear it.
Is this the new Otto?
This is the upgrade from Otto. Because this guy, he already has a spy network that he's established. Because you know
effective.
Yeah, an effective spy network. Because you know for a fact that he's not limping around in the castle watching the princess's chambers. Like
Phantom of the Opera style.
He can't even walk straight. Like he can't move around the castle at night.
Have we haven't received confirmation of that. It could be an act. It's like in The Prestige, the guy that with the fishbowl trick, where he's like he's not actually unable to walk, but he's putting it on so his enemies underestimate him.
This is the only pushback that I will provide on that. His brother is known as the Bone Breaker, the strongest knight in the realm. You don't think that he would want to be perceived as the weakest person in court when your brother is literally the strongest in the court?
I'm totally kidding. Like, if they were to reveal that down the line, that would be a ridiculous twist.
I would be all for it. Like, I'd respect him, like, even more than I already respect him because he's a creepy son of a bitch. But
I like what it adds to the character.
Yes.
Because I do think that it's actually baked in to it's where he says, like, oh, well, when you're not allowed to speak, you learn to listen. It's the same idea. It's like a person who can't see, like, their sense of awareness and, like, touch and hearing is elevated.
Yes.
So he has taken what is allowed him in his world and become a master.
Well, and when he was saying that, I know we saw the movie together, but a line came to me when we saw the movie Vice. At the very beginning of the movie, it says, "Beware the quiet man, for he watches," and he like again, I was going to take down the actual quote, but I didn't, but it's like, "Beware the quiet man, he watches and calculates, and you never know what his next move is." Like, essentially that's the gist of the quote. And that I feel like very much covers Lars. Lars strong.
Thoughts on Vice, real quick?
I know you didn't like it, but I enjoyed it. It's a, I don't want to say a fun movie. That's like,
because it has a lot of like really good elements.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Rockwell as George W. Bush.
Amazing.
Fantastic. I wish it was a George W. Bush movie.
But like, let's not
derail the whole podcast. Why not?
Well, I wasn't gonna say that, but I'm blanking on Christian Bale. Like let's not. Christian Bale did a really good job as Dick Cheney. Like,
yeah, but then there's like the part at the end where he like turns to the camera and he's like, "You people," and I just roll my eyes so hard.
Well, you know he's trying to do the whole House of Cards, like the fourth wall break.
That's exactly what it is.
Like they definitely could have, like, if he would have done it throughout the movie, I feel like it would have been.
And I'm not putting that on Christian. Like, to me, that's
it's just poor writing.
More so direction. But I guess both, because I think Adam McKay is the writer-director on that one.
But dragons!
Yeah, I liked The Big Short. Back to House of the Dragon.
I also did really like, just about this scene, that Lord Lars was like he was talking about these plants that were in the Godswood, about how they're not native, but they were thriving still. And like, he very much was using that to talk about Alicent. Like he was like, I don't know. I just really liked that. But I also sort of liked how Alicent was just like, what do you want, Lord Larys? Like completely like,
yeah. Underestimating him.
And I also made note, Lord Larys is a snake.
Well, Otto's a snake. I think Larys is like a hyena.
No, here's the thing. Otto is a vulture. It's already been decided that he's
okay.
He is a vulture, and he's picking. Larys, I can see hyena, but
they're both snakes.
They're both snakes. I do think Lord Larys is more dangerous, and like not more dangerous in power. I say power levels, but like in levels of influence and power. But Larys, I think, is the more intelligent. If there is like a game, a mind games, I'm picking Lord Larys over Otto, because a lot of Otto's influence comes from the amount of power that he has. Where Larys, again, he's a lord, so he has his own level, but the high towers are definitely.
Yeah, I would probably put Larys tops as far as like the intelligence chain, which, damn, I would love if we could just go through and like D&D stats on every character in the show, but there's no way. We already run way too long every episode.
When we wrap up House of the Dragon,
that'll be episode 500. Come on back. That'll be a House of the Dragon revisit.
But anything else?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did just want to note real quick that, again, to the point of his like intelligent, conniving nature, the way that he swoops in, seemingly within the hour of her father leaving, and he just like drops in and leaves this like big intelligence bomb.
I don't think we've mentioned what the intelligence bomb was.
Yeah. So and he drops it very delicately, I might say. It's sort of this like underhanded comment that there's a lot of intention behind it, but it could be easily, like just dismissed as less than that.
Yes. It very much was he was playing innocent, but in a very believable way. Again, showing to me that he is very much more tactful and intelligent than Otto, because I don't think Otto would have been able to play that off near as well.
and Otto's up there too, man.
He is up
so that's
there.
High praise.
It is high praise. And again, I know the hypocrisy for me loving Larys and loving and hating Otto.
This one comes all the way back around.
But I really do think that Larys is just such a I say disgusting, but he's so he has the prototype of being a villain. Like, it's almost like to a T. Like, he's got the limp, he's got the cane, you can just see that there's years and years of resentment and bitterness, like being in the shadow of his brother. And like,
sure. But the bomb that he dropped, so he makes a comment to the effect of like, is the princess well? I heard that she had a special tea made by the Grand Maester himself delivered to her chambers
the day after Daemon showed up.
That one. Which Alicent, of course, is losing her mind on the inside at this revelation, because this, I mean, one way or another, because obviously she didn't request this, but it means that the king truly believes that she had sex, and also probably indicates that she admitted to as much to him, even though she didn't.
I mean, I think because last episode, it was showing us how lonely Alicent is. Like you said, she was almost begging for Rhaenyra to have that friendship. So not only is there a divide being put up between Rhaenyra, but there's almost a divide that's being put up between Alicent and Alicent and Viserys, who like she had a friendship and connection with. And as we mentioned, we're just seeing that there's this separation growing between the two of them.
Yeah.
And it's, you definitely get the sense that she's breaking. Like she almost snaps. And I do think there's a moment where you get to see where like she is just gone, but we'll get to that. It's coming up. But we go back to Driftmark.
Yes.
And
and they meet. So Viserys actually right?
Yeah, so Viserys and Lyonel go alone, leaving their entourage. And I don't know if you were really looking at like the murals that were on the wall when they were going there, but I
might have to go back. Are they nautical?
They're very nautical. Well, they're ships, and it's just like it's just like ships that are being painted, and it just looks so like I love Driftmark. Like,
What's the set design? It's because this is the Driftwood throne.
Yes.
Right. So the chamber, like the throne room, is called the Hall of Nine, which is a reference, I guess, to like there are like 9 trophies from Corlys's various triumphs throughout the years. And what's even better, this is not a go yet, but allegedly, get this.
Okay.
Another prequel series has been pitched that would cover the voyages of young Corlys. And after this episode, it was moved from the pitch phase to HBO ordering like a pilot script. So it's not a go, but how do we feel about maybe that one?
I'm all for it. I love that because again, I don't want to jump ahead too, but I just feel like right now is a really good time to mention it. But when Corlys is looking at the mask of the crab feeder, we pan back and you see this massive shell. I don't know if you saw it or, but
yeah.
I was like, that looks so...
You want the story.
I want this, like, what is that? Where did that come from? Is that like a sea monster that he killed? Or like, what's going, or is that just made? Like, what's going on here?
So the one thing I will say is Hall of Nine, I want 9 episodes. I don't want it to drag on, but if you're going to give me a mini series, hell yeah.
1.5 episodes, 9 episodes.
1.5?
For each trophy?
You want 9 movies?
Well, no, if it's a trophy, like there's going to be a story behind each one of them.
Okay, but we agree that we don't want it to be
it
like
won't be 9 because we already know what happened with one of them. It's the crab feeder mask.
Oh, does that count?
I'm pretty sure.
Well, I brought it. I don't know, but limited series sounds fantastic. I hope it happens.
Yes. But diving back into there, Corlys is seated on the throne when they come in, and I do think he very much has a cocky feeling because he stands up and he's looking down at the king for like a couple seconds before he goes down and kneels. Like he takes his time to get there, and to me, it's showing that he's gloating, and it's also showing that there's still some resentment for not marrying Laena, which, I mean, Corlys is getting what he wants in the end, but still, like, Viserys is not doing well.
Yeah, and it's because it seems like it's not just the seasickness.
Yeah.
And he's sort of making an obvious effort to preserve a sense that he's well and like he can handle his business.
Yes.
But not really pulling it off because then when Rhaenys comes in, she like takes his hand, which she gets a reaction when she realizes underneath the gloves he's missing some fingers. It's a big deal when you're the king and you don't have all that together. And she's like, I also imagine like her getting a look at him up close. She's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, yes, I'm fine.
And I do get a sense that she has a closeness and fondness for Viserys, just with how she reacted when she first came in. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if she was playing that up. She could have been playing it up, but there is a level, like, and she even says later in the episode that she doesn't care that she wasn't named queen. Like, she's moved on from that. So again, to me, that shows she has like a familial love for Viserys and genuinely cares about him as a cousin. And I mean, I'm a sucker for all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
Um,
And to the same point, though, later in the scene, Corlys offers like, "Hey, do you need me to get you a chair?" And he denies it. He's trying to save face and keep it together, but he's also low key falling apart.
yes. Now, I do have a question. Like, I'm not doubting that it's called. What did you call it again?
The Hall of Nine.
The Hall of Nine, because they say the Halls of High Tide as well at one point. I don't know if that's.
I did not hear it mentioned as the Hall of Nine, but I saw multiple sources refer to it as that online. So
Okay.
you could be right. Maybe it's both.
It very well could be both as well, because it may be it's the Hall of Tide. It could be the Hall of High Tide for everybody, but when Corlys is Lord of Driftmark, he might have named it the Hall of Nine because it's his 9 adventures that he's. So I don't know. Who knows? But I do think Lyonel was very much showing his worth and being very much the voice for the king during that. I made note that he was very much doing a very good job at just relaying what's going on and being a good diplomat. And that's when they hear about a certain death that came across in the Eyrie.
Yeah.
And you just know that when they talk about it, they all are like, oh, Daemon. Like, they all know it was Daemon. Like, you could see it in their faces that nobody is like, oh, this was a horrible accident. Like, they're like, oh no,
It's one of those, and you get a fair bit of that in this episode of people like, everybody knows it's an open secret, but we're not going to address it directly. That
only
would be
one
improper.
person directs it, says it directly.
Yeah, and it's somebody who has a little extra stake in the situation.
But then Viserys finally just gets like, okay, let's get going. I propose a marriage between the heir of Rhaenyra and the Vaynor,
or as the Ryan J. Condal, the showrunner, would say, Laenor, or no, Laenor.
Laenor. There's a marriage proposal for the hand of Laenor here. And then they started discussing exactly what it would look like, where
There's kind of a moment there, though, because it's like, okay, you are getting proposed, like, you are getting offered the princess,
yes,
for your son, and they're just kind of like, cool, let's talk about it. And
what else?
Yeah, it's like the whole tour, like, people are lined, like, anybody would be just overjoyed at least the practical benefits of such an arrangement. But Corlys is very cool and like, all right, well, that's a start.
Well, and you know that because again, like Corlys, again, I feel so hypocritical about it because Corlys is almost having the same ideas as Otto. Corlys wants a Velaryon to be the king. Like, he wants his blood to be on the throne. But I love Corlys and despise Otto. And it may just be that Corlys is just more upfront and honest about his desires than Otto is, but I don't know.
The point is, then they start discussing terms, and Corlys wants to go in on what the succession would look like based on such an arrangement.
And to be fair, like, I think, especially with it being a very unique situation, I feel like it's a very good deal. All the children are Velaryons until the heir is named and ascends to the throne. Then they take on the name Targaryen.
And then it's further agreed that after so at like a generation later, Laenor's grandchildren will have to be Targaryens.
Yes. Yes.
And everybody seems happy with it. Good deal.
Corlys is happy. Viserys is as happy as he could be in the situation because throughout the conversation, he's just getting worse. Like, he's not doing well. And I'm going to say Viserys,
he's a fair man. He makes good deals.
He's a good guy. He's a good deal maker. And I don't know if you picked this up, but Lyonel did not drink his wine until Corlys agreed to the marriage proposal. Like, he had the cup of wine there and he was just waiting. And then Corlys was like, I don't remember the exact verbiage he used, but essentially he said that he concedes, and then Lyonel just
oh, thank God.
And as he walks out, I couldn't, yes, he's obviously sick, but I almost get a sense that Viserys, and again, he has every right to be just because he has been slighted. Well, there's been slights going back and forth, but Viserys looks angry to me when he's walking out. Again, he looks sick, but he's not celebrating as you might think he would. And again, I might be looking too much into that, but he's going to bed.
Well, there's also kind of a moment, again, like I said, where to get any pushback at all on an offer for the princess's hand is pretty disrespectful.
Yes.
So I to me, that's all I read it as. And this whole arrangement was like a let's get it over with. But I think that was like an extra slight against him.
And especially how Rhaenys says, it looked desperate on his part that they came to Driftmark. They didn't have them come to King's Landing. And the king himself actually came. It wasn't just Rhaenyra and on guard. It was the king himself. And yeah, is there anything else you want to go over with that particular scene?
No, I think we can breeze through this scene with Rhaenyra and Laenor walking along the beach.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like how we talked about, it's an open secret that Daemon killed his wife. It's an open secret that Laenor is gay. Again, we don't get that confirmation, but Rhaenyra is definitely hinting at it.
Well, up to this point, we do get confirmation in the episode.
Well, we do in the episode, but I like to play it scene by scene, Austin.
Our listeners have seen the episode. We can play it a little looser than that.
All right.
You imagine they're listening to our podcast while watching the episode.
Those are our true fans. If you don't have 2 TV screens on right now.
No, see, our true fans, that's how they listen to the episode the second time.
Gotcha. No, it's the first time. Those are the true diehard fans. First time they're getting the talk. We're like the director's cut of the episode when they're going through the scene and talking about everything going on in the background.
Okay. Do we want to tease it now then that we are going to actually do reactions to season 2?
Well, I feel like you just said it, but
I can cut it out.
Yeah, let's go for it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have decided the small council has come together.
The smaller council,
the smallest council has come together and unanimously decided that when the season 2 of House of the Dragon comes out, we will do live reactions to all 8 of the episodes, and you will get our thoughts on the episode in a separate but filmed the same day episode.
Yeah, those are going to be some late nights, but I actually think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of caffeine involved. There's probably going to be some pizza involved, maybe some Jersey Mike's.
Yeah.
The unofficial sponsor of the podcast.
Yeah, speaking of, we got to keep going.
You're right.
Jersey Mike's close at 9.
So, I got from this scene, everyone really, even though nobody says it, but everyone knows that Laenor is gay. And Rhaenyra pretty much says, hey, we're both being forced to do this. We'll perform our duties for our roles, but you do what you want to do and I'll do what I want to do. And
yeah, so they're essentially
it's an open marriage.
Yeah, they're prepping for an open relationship. which has an air of practicality to it based on his sexual preferences.
Yes, and you can very much tell that Laenor, Laenor.
Whatever you want to do, man.
I'm going with Laenor. Laenor.
So, man, I made a note on it because Ryan J. Condal threw me off when he Laenor. But as it was pronounced in the episode, Laenor.
Okay. So, but Laenor is very much happy with this arrangement. When they were first walking, he didn't look too happy. But by the end of this conversation, you can tell he's very much excited. And I think he has that love for Rhaenyra. It may not be an intimate, sexual based love, but he has very much a fondness and deep caringness for Rhaenyra. And I think that was shown.
Yeah, I have two very quick notes on this scene. I think it was very tasteful for them to discuss his sexual preferences through innuendo. They're more just talking about food, but nice bit of direction there by my girl, Claire Kilner, same director as last episode, who is a woman. And I also wanted to point out that this is a notable first. We've already had our episode notable first. I mean, these orbs. Guys. But notable first for Game of Thrones, The World of Westeros, and that this is the first episode of either show that is not just directed by a woman, but also written by a woman.
Interesting.
And I think it leads to quality. Maybe we should encourage that a little more.
Definitely worth researching and seeing how we can replicate it more, get more episodes like this.
But I didn't mean to, that was one of my things. The other thing is that there's an early shot in this scene, and I'm sorry that I didn't bring it up. I meant to show you, but again, Jersey Mike's closes at 9. There's a shot that looks strikingly similar to the Windows 10 default lock screen. And I just want everybody listening to this podcast, if you can, go check the episode back. It's kind of uncanny. That's all. Okay, let's move on.
Moving on. So we go back to Corlys, and Corlys is as happy as a kid on Christmas. Like he is looking at the crab feeder mask, and he is smiling from ear to ear. He got what he wanted.
And he's not worried about the gay thing.
It's a phase. He's gonna grow out of it.
Yeah.
And there's I made note about the show, but I already talked about that. But we also made note Viserys is already leaving. He is not sticking around because
Howdy.
Yeah, they had the meeting, they agreed, they're getting out of there. And then Corlys is also like, "Oh, did I press him too hard?" Which, yes.
I think he. Okay, I respect a strong player. I think it was fair. He has been slighted by the king.
Yes.
And again, we reached a compromise that everybody seems content with.
And I also do think it's worth noting that he was typically men in this world, they're not going to be that level of vulnerable in being like, "Hey, did I mess up?" Essentially he was asking his wife, "Hey, did I mess up? Did I
Which that's the tricky thing is for a man of great power in this world, he does seem to be a man with integrity. He's kind of old-fashioned,
Yes.
but I also do get the sense that he loves his wife.
Oh, I was going to say just the tenderness and I love their relationship. This entire conversation was probably one of my favorite couples relationships we've seen, maybe in a Game of Thrones series.
I mean, not to spoil it, but I mean it. Not going to spoil, but based on this conversation and his actions later, it does make me kind of feel like he's not hearing her. Because the conversation kind of amounts to she's like, Rhaenys says, I'm kind of worried about this. One, the gay thing. We both know our son's nature.
Yes.
And two, we're marrying him into what is likely to be a very bloody conflict down the line. And he's like, yeah, but babe, like
the benefits.
he sees it as an opportunity to right the great wrong of her not being named successor to the Iron Throne. And she's like, I'm over it. So it makes me think, again, not to say too much, but it makes me think that he's maybe using that as an opportunity to do the things he just wants to do, to like indulge his lust for power, where she's like, it's over, it's done. I that's in the past.
So I agree, but how I see it is, Corlys is concerned about legacy, while Rhaenys is concerned about her current family. Like, Corlys obviously loves his children, he loves his wife, but he wants the Velaryon line to continue and elevate into a level of greatness. While Rhaenys understands, like, hey, at the end of the day, like, I love my children and I want my children to be okay. I want them to be put in positions where they're going to be happy. And
if only this whole world could take that perspective. But then we wouldn't have a great show.
And we wouldn't have, it would be a boring show.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you telling me you don't want to see the Full House version of Game of Thrones?
No, I don't.
Yeah. Me neither. The Corlys show, please.
And I know I mentioned this already, but I think it's also very much worth noting that the Velaryons, they have half the dragons. Corlys mentions as much, that they currently own half of the dragons that are in existence.
Well, half of the dragons with riders.
Yes,
I think
half of the dragons with riders in existence, which, in a war situation, again, going back to what I was saying, if Otto was willing to just put aside his pride, like, Aegon conquered this.
Yeah, we talked about
6,000. He did it with 6,000 men and 3 dragons.
Okay. Anything else on their conversation?
No. Love their relationship. Beautiful relationship.
Love Corlys.
Love Corlys. Love Rhaenys.
And after this, we go to Laenor and Joffrey discussing his upcoming marriage.
Yep.
And it is pretty apparent from this scene, I'd say from the first frame of this scene, that they are lovers.
Yes. I do want to make note, one of the biggest things that I got from this is we were trying to decide what Laenor's title would be. King Consort.
King Consort. Look, I wrote it down. That's the last note on my page.
Hey, there we go. We were both having the same thought. King Consort is what his title will be as the king.
As the husband of the queen in power.
Correct. Yes. And I'm glad we got that. And as beautiful of a scene this is, just showing, because they obviously are close and they're lovers. Joffrey made the line that's almost tragic to me, where it's saying, this is better than what we could have hoped for. And again, it's just showing that naivety, that they don't understand what they're getting themselves into.
No, they're just looking at the arrangement that Rhaenyra and him agreed to, and like, that's great.
This is no catch.
Short-sighted. Yeah.
And this leads to another very tragic scene, in my opinion.
Let's get into it.
Rhaenyra and Cristen. And I want to first make note of what each one of them are wearing. Cristen came no armor on and was very much just the plain padding that's underneath, which
he looks so hot.
He looks hot, but it's a sign of vulnerability that we talked, like when we were talking about how Rhaenyra is taking the armor off, like he's coming in completely vulnerable, with completely pure, because he's all one color, pure intentions, while Rhaenyra is decked out in princess fit, where she does look amazing in her fit, but she's clearly dressed as a princess is.
And that basically tells you everything you need to know about how this conversation's going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
So Cole basically propositions Rhaenyra, like, come away with me. You've lamented the fact that you're going to have to marry somebody you don't want to. It's upon you. Like, I love you. We did it. I want you to come away with me. Like, and he lays out what, I don't live in the world. I don't know the inner workings of it, but it seems like a pretty practical plan to me.
And I especially loved, because I've sort of called Rhaenyra out for this. Cristen is like, you always talk about how you hate your responsibilities as being princess or being heir. Like, just throw that out the window. And you just like, and I will give Rhaenyra the benefit. She turns away and she genuinely like looks like she's holding in tears. Like, you can tell that there's a part of her that wants to do this because she does care.
You can read it in the performance that she does consider it, but Cole never had a chance.
Here's the thing. I don't even think that she necessarily considers it. I think she just she wishes that it could be the case that she could do it. Like, she wishes that she could throw it all away, but especially where she's been told the prophecy of like, it's bigger than her, and she tries to do it. But I will say, she completely does not handle the situation well.
See, that's the thing. She does not get Cole. And I do not think that she has any conception, any idea what is actually going on in his brain with this whole situation, because she denies him. But then her counter is like, but guess what? It's not a problem. I worked it out with Laenor. Like, we can just do our things on the side. It's cool. And Cole is pretty old fashioned.
So you want me to be your whore?
Yeah. He's like, hey, like, I'm in super deep on this. I feel really bad about it, but I want this to happen. And the only way that's like acceptable to me is if we do get married. Like, that is
yes,
the penance, or the way to make it right.
And again, like we've discussed, that he's a master of his traits. So he's trying to be like the most pinnacle knight. He's trying to be as honorable as possible. So he's trying to do the honorable thing. But also, like, where Rhaenyra, I think, really messes up is when he's giving this, she has the look on her face like, oh, that's so cute. Like she has a very patronizing face again, like, but then also she makes a comment that like really I think was just the dagger in the heart for, she's like, you would have me give up the throne for some oranges and Pentos. Like, I'm like, no, that's not.
And I'm over here, the audience member, like, do it. It's worth it.
Like, and it's, Cristen walks away, and it's very much appropriate. And we get an aerial shot of the boat that is still just incredible. And I also low-key love the fact, I know that being on the ocean, it's really hard to hear. It's very loud, but they were having the conversation right next to the king's quarters. Like, it was right there.
Yeah, but you're right though. Like, the ocean sound was very present.
Yes, it's
in
still
the scene.
It's still just funny to think that they're having this. Like, if I was Cristen, like, even though I know that you wouldn't be like, just the fact that like the king is literally 5 feet away.
To your what you mentioned earlier, though, I feel like this is a particularly good-looking episode.
Yes.
A lot of the aerials and more of the intimate moments. So to the point that I looked up the cinematographer, and like, he doesn't have a lot of credits other than this that I'm familiar with, but Alejandro Martinez comes with it. And in looking that up, I noticed an interesting synchronicity in that he is credited on 3 episodes in this season and 2 episodes in the upcoming season, all of which are the episodes directed by who? Claire Kilmer.
Coincidence?
Powerful duo. That's all I'm gonna say. But I do want to shout out a couple scenes, if I may,
yeah,
because
by all means,
the the scene with Rhaenyra and Laenor walking on the beach, magnificent. There's one shot with like the reflections in the sand where they're more in silhouette that is probably like certainly top 5 shots in the show so far for me. Especially if you exclude those with dragons. And all of the stuff of what's it called where they high tide?
Yeah.
All of that looks stellar. And part of that is that's an actual castle that is in
Ireland?
I made a note about it. Okay, the exteriors for High Tide Castle on Driftmark are a famous castle of St. Michael's Mount on the southern coast of Cornwall, England.
It's an English castle.
Yeah, and I'm sure that it's CGI enhanced.
Oh, for sure.
But you put that one up against the other aerials in this episode, even, which all look great. But that one in particular, it just gives it some grounding and the look of it and a little more personality, I feel like.
Yeah.
I wanted to shout those. I could do a whole 2-hour podcast just on the look of this episode, but I will stop myself there.
Oh, I agree. But we go back to the Red Keep. Viserys collapses once he gets out of the carriage. And they're calling for leeches to start leeching him. And Cristen,
yeah, we've long graduated from the maggots.
Yeah, it's the leeches. And Cristen it seems to be he's going to his chambers, he's off duty, but the queen summons him.
That she does.
And I just want to make note, when we see Alicent in this next scene, she is dead-eyed. She's holding the baby. She is like,
which is turning into like a signature way to start any Alicent scene where she's just like looking massively depressed at holding a screaming child.
Yes. And
it's almost like her children, like a baby in particular, represents like how she's trapped in her circumstances.
Yeah. And again, I think it's just trying to also illustrate just how she's sort of feeling. Like, you could almost think that the baby screaming is how she is in her mind right now. Like, she is probably screaming at everything. She's alone. She feels like she has no friends. And not only does she not feel like she has any friends, but the people closest to her are lying through their teeth to her. And the people that aren't lying are still sort of lying. Otto is over there lying to her on the regular and then being manipulative like that. That's
You don't know who doesn't lie to her, though.
Lord Larys.
Okay. That's not who I was talking about, though. That's in this very scene, Sir Cristen Cole spills the beans.
And I don't even think Alicent understands how effective she was being as like.
Yeah, it is one of those, like, the writing in the scripting of this scene is very delicate to sort of encourage him to bring that up, because he thinks that she knows already about him, but she's talking about Rhaenyra and Daemon, but she just doesn't want to say it.
And you can tell she's nervous, and the way she's like bringing it all up. Like, yes, I feel like it's beautifully written how this conversation's going, because she's like clearly nervous, doesn't want to say it. So she's like going around in circles, but Cristen is like, she just wants me to say it. I just want to say it.
It didn't bother me actually that much, but I definitely saw the mechanics of the scene construction, especially the one moment where she doesn't say Daemon's name, like very pointedly, but it gets us where we need to be. Where Cristen Cole's like, it happened. It was me.
Yes.
We had the sex.
And Alicent, like, has just this look of just complete hurt, but also complete confusion on her face. Like,
yeah. And, Emily Carey has a lot of big scenes in this episode.
yes.
This maybe being the biggest, not like the biggest scale wise or like importance to the plot,
Yeah.
but performance wise, There's a lot going on there. I feel like this is her episode. And I do just want to give I wanted to give special respect.
Well, we'll give it at the end.
Okay. Because there is another big one coming up, but she's really great in this scene, and it's again in the eyes, you can see the gears turning, because this is like a revelation on a revelation.
Like this is just like, wait, what? I did not calculate this. And Cole asks for mercy. Like he's like, hey, like instead of gelding me, like or torturing me, all I ask is it's a merciful death.
Oh, he's such a Boy Scout.
He's such a Boy Scout. But Alicent sends him away, which is hilarious to me because Cole looks super confused as well. Like,
yeah, well, what does Cole go then do? Like with the next 2 hours of his life?
Do you just run? Like, no, he wouldn't run.
Too much honor.
But like, probably
maybe he goes and gets a ham and cheese sandwich and like really enjoys it.
But we go over to the king's room, and we talked about this earlier about how Lyonel and the king are having this conversation, and the king really is concerned about his legacy. He wants to be remembered as a great king, and Lyonel is, in my opinion, bringing up some good points on like, you don't need to be like, a lot of these people that have had conflict in their reign wish that they didn't. And
yeah, so and this scene to me is showing Viserys has an element of vanity, which hasn't really been portrayed. It seems like he has faults. He's not a perfect man. I think he is quite decidedly one of the most upstanding characters in this entire show.
Yes.
And indeed we'll see a little bit more of that. But this is showing kind of like a weakness. Like he is displaying that vulnerability, and that he's like, the decisions I've made have led to me being it's like in the Game of Thrones where Jaime, his page in the Book of Knights is like 2 sentences long. And it bothers him. Like he's like, I'm a great man, or at least like I am the king. Like I have dedicated myself to a very stressful, involved pursuit that is not really going to amount to much legacy, which is something that motivates many men in that circumstance.
And the problem that, and again, not to give away too much, but the sad thing is he's going to go down. There are going to be songs written about what
the great irony.
It's definitely one of those things where you don't like, there's a quote about history, like you don't know you're living through history until like you see it on the pages of a book, like or something along, like there are things in the works that's going to be happening. And again, we already discussed this, but Lionel's not a lickspittle. He's willing to push back, and I think that's also why he's willing to be vulnerable. The king is willing to be vulnerable with Lyonel because he knows that he's going to be able to get a straightforward answer. And the king says, again, one of the most correct things in the show is Lyonel is always right.
Yep. I agree with it. You go.
No. It's not. If you're about Lyonel.
My only other point is to make, like, obviously the king collapsed. He looks like shit in this scene. Like, he is not looking good at all. So just to sort of set the tone there, this is a low point for him, and Lyonel is sort of a comfort, and that's the interesting thing, is where he's like arguing him. He's not humoring him, but it ends up being for the best because he's just such a wise, strong.
He's the fat Gandalf.
Commendable man. Maybe with a little more of a beard.
I also want to reiterate that the Grand Maester pushed away the other maester who was trying to give the king herbs that was going to help him. He said, no, the leeches will be enough.
Yeah, but then he slips him a little potion to Lyonel. That he's like, this will help the king sleep, right?
Well, I think that's milk of the poppy that he was giving.
But that's the thing is he posits it as like a new concoction. Interesting.
We'll see. But
and it also, there is a bit of a moment that I noticed where Viserys, who is obviously not doing well, he's in pain, but there's a moment before he takes it where like a moment of hesitation. And then he goes for it. And
he also asks where Alicent is.
Yeah. Where is Alicent?
Where is Alicent? Anything else we want to discuss with this?
His miniature model appears to have expanded.
Hey, I wouldn't know anything about that.
At least he's got that going for him.
Hey, we all need a hobby. This next part of the show is like, there's been some incredible shots. There's been some incredible scenes, but this next sequence is probably one of my favorite visually, what's going on. And it's when everybody is coming for the wedding. And at 37:26, we get 2 dragons.
Bam!
One of which is a new dragon. Unfortunately, we don't get too much of a shot of our good red dragon, Melays, who is ridden by Rhaenys. She is the rider of Melays, but she is riding right beside her son, Laenor, who is riding Sea Smoke. And they're just flying above the boats of the Velaryons fleet, and it's just so badass.
It is badass, and it's a wonderful composition. It's, for me, just slightly undercut by how good the Driftmark looked, but it's still amazing.
I just loved when it was showing the fleet, and then it was panning up to King's Landing and the Red Keep in particular, and it just this is what a royal wedding is supposed to look like. You have the 2 houses that are showing their power, showing their authority. And like you said, the music is just on point. It goes hard.
I didn't mean to critique it there. Like, really, what I mean is it looks as good as a CGI composition on this level can.
Yes. And the wedding is beginning.
Yes. So just to clarify, because we discussed this before, appearance of a new dragon, but we are going to delay discussion of Malays until a further episode where we get a bit more meat to actually break down.
I think we can say Malays is a red dragon, seems to be more of a stocky dragon and is covered in spikes, but that's really all we get. Like, we get a few seconds. We don't get that in-depth look that we got of other dragons.
Yeah, and since this is a rewatch series, we know that there are going to be opportunities.
Will we ever see Malays again?
Just you wait. Oh, and next episode, by my memory, like this episode and the one before, pretty dragon light. Next episode, we're in for it.
They back.
It's the counterbalance. So look forward to that one.
But we go into the Great Hall of the King where the wedding feast is beginning, and
no, it's the throne room.
It's the throne. Yeah, well, the Great Hall is the throne room, isn't it?
Yeah, but I did just want to clarify because I don't think they don't usually hold events like this in the throne room. It's usually in like the keep.
Typically, I'd say it's a special occasion.
Maybe the most special of occasions.
Yes, and I know the hypocrisy is there, but you first see the Lannisters coming in and they're doing their whole royal facade. But then the High Towers are behind them, and the High Towers look so pissed off, and I love it. Like, you can just see on Otto's brother's face that he is just so mad. Like,
Hobart.
Hobart. Like, it just joy. There was joy in my soul to see that he was just so angry. But
do you know something interesting?
huh.
I think we forgot to mention the name of this episode, We Light the Way. Do you know the significance of that?
I was thinking of something, but I don't think it's the same as what you're thinking. So go ahead.
The internet tells me that is the motto of House Hightower. Which is curious, because, it's not like they've had a big moment yet this episode.
Funny enough, I think what I'm thinking is sort of relating, but I'll save it for a little later.
Okay.
On what I'm thinking. But
who else shows up to this here shindig?
Well, Jason is such a scumbag, but he's I'm loving how much of a scumbag he is in this, and he's trying to be funny, and the king is just like, move on, keep going.
Yeah.
And Rhaenyra is just low-key, just digging at him. But I also do want to make note, Sir Gerald cuts in front of the Hightowers. Again, another thing that I just
got him.
He cuts right in front of them, and they discuss Lady Ray. But in the middle of the conversation, the Velaryons show up, and the drip, they come dripping in.
Watch out.
They all look good. Obviously Laenor looks incredible in the black and gold silk thing that he was wearing, but all of them came looking incredible.
This whole scene, it just boggles me to think the costume designing that goes, and it's did you it feels like it should have taken 15 years just to dress for this scene. So
right?
Hats off to the team there.
And it wasn't until Laenor comes up and not embraces, but has that that connection with Rhaenyra that I didn't realize Rhaenyra has rubies in her hair.
Her do-up is awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
It was all incredible. And Jason also looks so annoyed at Laenor, which again, I think Jason is more obviously he's not a meme character, but at this point he is just a meme character.
He's fun.
He's fun. He's a complete airhead, but he's also a very powerful lord.
They're giving us exactly enough of Jason Lannister.
But there's another person who shows up. The Rogue Prince himself.
Yeah.
And he comes in with the biggest smile out of all of them.
Oh my God. His energy, this whole scene.
And the thing is, everybody stood when the Velaryons came in. They were showing that sign of respect. There was all of that duty. When he comes in, everybody almost turns their back to him. They're trying to ignore him. But I think he's he loves playing the heel. He's playing I think in his head, he's I got all the attention because it's all the negative attention.
Yeah. And I mean, to his credit, it's risky pulling this. I mean, he got banished. We don't know 2-3 days, a week ago. But also he's an established ally of Corlys and company.
Yes.
So I think that's where Viserys is I'll allow it.
Well, and he's also a Targaryen. He is the king. He's the prince of he's a prince.
Yeah, but I think it's that connection.
It definitely is
the Velaryon connection that lets him get away with it.
And I also love that they have to go and grab a seat and gets brought up. It's very much a public display of oh, you're doing this for me. It's just...
Again, the energy he brings in this scene.
It's dragon.
Despicable, but I love it.
He's full of sass and he's full and he has all smiles.
Now, the queen is still notably absent. But they begin
the king's speech.
Calling for a Jeffrey Rush Best Picture winner. Not to be discussed on this podcast. I don't think by any stretch.
He does have big dragon energy.
Jeffrey Rush kind of has dragon energy in every movie.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest. Love that guy. We got to do pirate. We got to find a way to do pirates someday.
Is a kraken a dragon?
It's just not. We'll just start a new camp because they're making more movies.
Oh yeah.
So that'll be because if a dragon shows up in one, we can do the whole series.
We just need to write the directors and screenwriters for the next Pirates. Like, even if it's just a glimpse, just but the king does start his speech, and very notably, Alicent interrupts the speech by showing up, and she's dripped out in her green dress.
Very green.
Very green. And makes almost a point to get the king to stop and makes a very public entrance. And the music when she was like coming in, again, on point, like incredible.
It's a badass moment.
And you can tell that she is pissed. Like the look on her face, she is not happy.
But it's... I'm sure this is what you're about to say, but it's such a pivotal moment.
Yes.
And I just love Alicent. I feel like she's such a classy lady that like this is the way that she confronts her new enemies.
Yes.
By like making like a dramatic moment through like symbolism. She doesn't come out and say it, but she's saying even more by not saying it. And this is like her... I say Otto's out of the game. This is Alicent entering the game.
Yes. I really feel like in this moment, this is where Team Green and Team Black has officially like formed, because when she starts walking, the High Towers immediately stand up for that sign of respect. And you have several of the people that I assume are High Tower allies that stand up with them. And then eventually everybody else does stand up in respect.
Everybody but one person. Did you catch it?
The only one who can get away with it.
I guess. But Daemon, he doesn't stand. And they don't do a close-up on it, but you can see it in multiple angles that eventually everyone else stands for the Queen's entrance except for Daemon.
But I also, no Daemon defense, no Daemon defense. I feel like he can see through Otto's, he knows exactly what Otto's doing. He doesn't respect it.
I love that all of your feelings about every character spring from your feelings about Otto. At the very least in form.
Well, you know that's why he's not standing up, because he hates Otto. Like, Daemon hates Otto probably more than I hate Otto.
Without it, he's also a little bit of a shit stirrer.
He is, very much so. But there's one scene, one thing that happens during this that I view as so sad, more just because I know what eventually happens. But you get like this level of closeness. I don't even want to say closeness, but there's this relationship that you can see between Harwin and Larys. Like, they're like going back and forth, because Larys is like, do you know what color?
I got the quote.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Lars leans over and says, "The beacons on the high tower. Do you know what color it glows when Old Town calls its banners to war?"
Green.
There you go.
But there, like, you see, there's a relationship between the two of them there, and like in the scene, you're like, okay, like, yeah, they're brothers, they're close, but just knowing what eventually happens, it's just so sad to me that like you're seeing that level of closeness. But
no spoilers.
No spoilers.
I like. Sorry, you just said it. What's his name?
Harwin.
Mm-hmm. I like him, and we get a little bit more of him in this episode. He just seems like a little bit of a bro, but like a guy who knows how to party, good natured. he let Rhaenyra get away with her little escapades the one night. Like he has cool uncle energy.
Well, in the second episode, he was the only one that was like, hell yeah, when she came back with all the blood in her hair and was that the third episode?
Third episode.
Sorry, yeah. In the third episode, she comes back. Like, he's all excited that she killed the boar and, like, is, like, all supportive. And, yeah, he definitely a bro. Definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed, you get the sense, but...
yeah, he's kind of the lower middle of the pack if we're ranking them in great contrast to his brother.
Hey, he put all of his
That's his dump stat.
It was his dump stat. He put it into strength and constitution for his other
maxed out. Yeah, he's tops on that front.
But
the two of them, imagine them like teaming up proper.
But they chose different teams.
Alas.
But the look Alicent gives Rhaenyra, like, I don't know if you caught the look when they're up at the high table, but she legitimately looks crazy because her eyes are like extra wide open.
She's catching the message.
She's catching them. But to me, there's a level that I'm like, there's a level of Alicent that has snapped. Like, she is not mentally well anymore.
Oh, are you referring to Rhaenyra or to Alicent?
To Alicent.
Yeah, okay. My bad. But yes, it again, great piece of performance. That's Emily Carey.
Yes.
With the Carey on this episode.
She carrying that episode. And Rhaenyra can clearly tell that something is wrong. The king then continues his speech. Is there anything else you want to go over?
I think we got it.
Yeah, the king continues his speech and emphasizes that there is going to be 7 days of tournaments and 7 days of feasting. And at the end of the 7 days, the wedding will take place.
Here's a quick question. Yeah. You have a better like database in your brain for the Game of Thrones show. Has there ever been a wedding actually depicted that went off without a hitch? I mean, so spoilers for Game of Thrones. There's a big one in season 3.
And a big one in season 4.
Yeah.
The thing is, there is, but it's tragic because it's the beginning of the end for the young prince, for the young king, the young wolf.
Yeah.
Rob's wedding. It's a beautiful ceremony. Nothing goes wrong, but it's the fact that it happened.
But that also, because that's like a secret wedding, right?
I mean, not really. I mean, it's secret when it actually happens, but then everyone's like, oh, it happened.
Yeah, but I'm saying that one almost like doesn't count, you know?
You said what? You didn't specify. You just said a wedding without going off with the hitch.
Okay, on a technicality, it is a possibility for a wedding to be portrayed. Because there are plenty of weddings that don't get shown, but it's almost like this horrible omen that it's like, oh my God, they're going to show the wedding. What's going to happen?
I mean, the actual wedding went off without a hitch and nothing wrong went on in the actual wedding, but it was a horrific arrangement that was going on between Sansa and Ramsay Bolton. Nothing wrong.
Don't you dare use that as your source.
Well, okay, Tyrion. Like Tyrion and Sansa's wedding. Again, like not happy circumstances, but nothing bad actually happened.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. That might be tops.
Any other weddings?
None are coming to my mind. But anyway, it's just the way this all plays out. It's very Game of Thrones.
Very Game of Thronesy.
But not quite yet.
Yes. But at the end of that, the dancing begins and Rhaenyra and Laenor start dancing. And I don't know if you picked up on this, but I feel like there was a lot of like dragon symbolism that they were doing when they were dancing.
Break it down.
Well, like they kept going on with their like having their arms straight out to the side like wings was very much like half of the movements that they did. And they just kept moving from side to side.
That makes sense.
Maybe foretelling a dance of dragons.
Hey, how about that? But then the party gets started.
Well,
others join them. Oh, you have something?
Both Joffrey and Sir Cristen Cole do not look happy. But Joffrey notices Sir Cristen Cole and how unhappy.
He's an observant one.
He is an observant one, and he's able to figure out what's going on. And
I do love the name Knight of Kisses. I just wanted an opportunity to mention that. For knowing his proclivities as well.
What's with all the gay knights having the gayest names? Because the gay, what was his name? Marjorie's brother in A Game of Thrones.
What was his?
He was the Knight of Flowers.
Yeah.
Like,
do the knights get to choose what they're the knight of?
is it like you get to pick it, or is it like superhero names where technically it's the media who picks out?
Or it's like, how do saints get their like saint of X? I think they have to earn it. Or do you have to die to become a saint?
Maybe. I think so. Because you have to be martyred. I think you have to be martyred to become a saint. We're not Catholic, like, so we.
Yeah, we're both going to hell. It's fine. But he notices, and he picks out Cristen. He's like, that's it. That's Rhaenyra's secret lover, and he shares this with Laenor.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, spicy, cool.
Well, they're like leverage. Okay, it's now equal. We each know who our secret lover is.
Yeah,
so in case, which to me, like, that's like, I get it, but it's also really shady on their part and a little shitty. Just like, oh, okay, we've got blackmail now, because you know that's not what Rhaenyra was going to like going for, like really thinking. Daemon is making like Daemon all this time is up at the high table.
Oh, shit.
And he is like giving flirty smiles over to Laenor's sister, Laena, which I want to point out, she's technically 16 at this point in time.
I think she's 17.
I don't think so, because it's been 4 years, right?
Possibly 5.
Either way, it's not good.
Yeah, she's a little young for him.
And she's clearly entertaining it as well, because eventually they do have a conversation, and
yeah, it's flirty, it's good natured. I mean, if you set aside the other that we discussed.
I do like, again, it's such a like, it's I thought it was a funny line, and I definitely did not catch it the first time that I watched it.
So this is where his name Gerald Royce approaches him, or the other.
Oh, so yes, that does happen. Well, before that even happens, Alicent gets up from the table and goes over to the high towers.
Yeah, and good old Hobart is like, we are with you.
Just know high tower and old town. Old town is with you, and only you. And not, she didn't say that, but that's inferred. But Sir Gerald calls out Daemon.
Yeah, he's basically like, she was too skilled a writer. This wasn't an accident. Like, you had something to do with this. And Daemon's like, maybe, but where's the proof?
Well, not only that, he's like, oh, by the way, where's my inheritance? Like,
oh, but he has one line that actually made me laugh out loud, where when he first approaches him, he says, yes, I'm positively bereft.
He's so dark. Like, I love dark humor. That's like, I love dark humor.
And he delivers it just like that. Which is that the English pronunciation on it?
Probably.
Okay.
I know that they pronounce things a lot differently than we across the pond do.
To me, it was always bereaved.
And I love that on the, like, Lyonel and Viserys the entire time are like, you're a monster. Like, the looks on their faces is like, they don't say anything, but like, they're looking over and like, you are a monster.
Yeah, well, his whole shit with flirting with Laena, yeah.
But that doesn't, they were giving these looks like, yes, he's
I'm just saying it compounds.
It does compound, but the looks that both, like, Lyonel like legitimately looked like a level of like scared. Which, you know what, I don't think that he,
I'd be scared,
yes.
dude. Daemon is such a loose cannon. like ever since his.
And I'll say this: Daemon is probably as the most, like we've said, he has the most dragon energy out of anyone there.
He is the picture in the dictionary.
Yes, like he very much encapsulates dragon energy. But again, like the line that I love the most and just laughed when it was said is when he's talking to Laena is, has anyone told you that you're nearly as pretty as your brother?
That's great. That went right over my head.
Like, well, I loved it, like, because that's the first thing he says to her, like,
wow.
And somehow that works on her because she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry about your wife," and then he's like, "Oh, don't be, I'm not." And then she like starts flirting with him about entertaining the idea that he needs to get remarried. Like,
it's that dragon energy at play.
Like, and you know that Corlys is just low-key proud of her. Like, and yeah, they're discussing the possibilities. But that's when the evening starts to take a turn because Joffrey approaches Sir Cristen Cole.
Yeah, and he has no way of knowing what's going on in this guy's head.
No. Like, he has no idea what's going on and just does the dumbest thing, I think. He's essentially, like, threatening him. Like, he's over here, like...
It could be taken that way, and I think it is taken that way. I think what he's trying to get at is more like, hey, you and I are in the same position. Like almost like an informal alliance.
Well, and I think that's also why the actions that happen take place.
Right, because Cristen does not want to hear that. Like, he does not want to be, to use his term, Rhaenyra's whore.
Yes.
Which he probably views Joffrey as.
Yes. I want to dive more into that, but in a little bit, because there's a few things. I love the dancing and I love the music that's going on, like the festival vibe of it. I also love how Daemon cockblocks Sir Harwin Strong, and you can tell, like, he gives in, but when he turns away, he has just a look of fury on his face. And
he interjects. He starts dancing with Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me watching this that isn't this the first they've seen each other since the brothel?
Yes.
Isn't that wild?
That's a little wild.
And it's kind of like they're picking up right where they left off in a way.
Well, you can tell that Rhaenyra's a little maybe not a lot. She's pretty salty with how he just up and left her, because like yes, because Daemon's like, "Is this what you want? All in Valyrian?" And she's like sort of taunting him, like, "Oh, take me to Dragonstone, make me your wife." But essentially, like, the underline is like, "But you won't." And that's when
well, she makes a comment that she's like, "You are surely armed. Like, cut your way out of this, like take me away." But her phrasing there, like, "you are surely armed," and her delivery on it almost maybe reads as like innuendo to me, that it's like, can you do it this time?
And again, like, he goes and like grabs her by the neck, which the king notices. But there's a scream that happens.
Yeah, and then the mosh pit opens up. and this party gets lit for real.
And you see just Cristen Cole going in, just...
Yeah, it's not a fun mosh pit.
But the thing is, I don't know if you picked this up, all the ladies of the court were sitting there and they were smiling and laughing when they were watching this.
Well, I don't think they knew the extent that it would lead to.
Maybe, but... We've had conversations about this in the past, about how life in these medieval times was probably, I mean, not just probably, but was very boring. There was not a lot going on. So seeing a fight like this was probably really exciting. Like,
it's like in the first episode, how all of the, well, this is more the, like the crowds, not the high nobility, but they're like really into just these like crazy acts of violence. So maybe to them this is like spontaneous.
Yeah, I mean, this is a
Controlled
UFC fight
violence.
just broke out in the middle of the hall.
Yeah, what fun.
And Laenor attacks Cristen, and Cristen like throws him. Like,
Yeah.
And Cristen then just keeps going in on attacking Joffrey, and Lyonel, always thinking ahead, tells his son to go save Rhaenyra, like during this time.
Yep.
And I think that has some significance to Rhaenyra.
Perhaps. Also, I wanted to mention, because Cole just keeps going in. I mean, he's been having, like Otto, just terrible, no good, very bad day. But he lets it all out in this moment in the most inappropriate way. And it reminded me of another scene. A few episodes back, Rhaenyra and the boar.
Yeah. Well, and I was having a similar thought along this line, where Cristen is seeing now a visual representation of what his relationship with Rhaenyra would look like. Like, Joffrey is that for Laenor. And he's having all this turmoil, and he snaps, and he finally decides that he needs to kill that feeling inside of him. It just so happens he takes it out on killing that physical representation.
Yes. And that's exactly it. Because again, the parallel that I'm seeing there, intentional or not, with Rhaenyra killing the boar and him killing the Knight of Kisses. One of these a little healthier than the other.
One's a hate crime, the other hunting experience.
Is them like killing an element in their life and then sort of like being born anew through an act of violence. Because this represents to Cole kind of a point of no return. This is this is him like submitting to his insecurities, his unhappiness, his frustrations with the whole situation.
Yes.
And basically blowing up his whole life. I mean, the scene that we get next of him is him getting ready to kill himself.
Yes. But before we do, like, we see blood trickling from Viserys. Like, not to deviate from that, because there's some other things I want to bring up along those lines, but there's some things chronologically I want to get. But there's blood that's coming down from the king's nose.
This seems to be the progression of his condition. Like, this outburst of violence is a little too much to take.
Yes. But he does it. He kills Joffrey, and at that point, everybody starts to clear out.
Yeah, because it's brutal. Caves in his face.
Like the Mountain style.
Just about.
And Laenor sees this and obviously is just completely devastated. And I think the correct decision, this wasn't just, there was no conversation, but it seems that they all decided and agreed that they just need to get it over with right then and have the wedding that night.
Yeah, and that's just the tragedy of it, because again, Viserys made that whole big point about how it was going to be a week of festivities, and I forget what character, but somebody was like, "Oh, this is just the first night. Like, what's to come?" And
I think it was Jason.
that's the one thing they connected on, because Viserys is like,
It's gonna be big.
And after the way that this went down, they're just like, okay, we're just gonna boil it down to the essentials, the people who have to witness this. We're gonna get it over with and cancel the rest.
And again, I think that this is foreshadowing just uneasiness to go, because 7 is very important. I believe we've discussed this, but 7 is very important to the people of Westeros, because that 7 represents the 7 deities that they have. Like, 7 is a holy number to them, and so they try to do things in 7s. So the fact that they're stepping away from that could be viewed as a sign that things will not be going well. But I want to talk about Cole going into the Godswood, and he, very similar to earlier, he takes all his armor off. He's vulnerable. He puts his sword aside. He puts his cloak aside.
Very calmly. He seems resigned to this, and I think that's his like knight honor coming out. But
yes.
it's almost robotic, where
Yes.
he's like, I have sinned. This is the consequence. I must commit seppuku. It's over.
And he's about to do it when Alicent comes, and I dare say, she lights the way. She comes in and offers another road for Cristen Cole.
A
road of redemption.
I mean, that's where it leaves it. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, he killed that other side of him and he's becoming a new person. And we know he's a dedicated knight. He's a dedicated man. And Rhaenyra may have just spurned somebody that... But here's my question, though, that I want to pose to you. Do you think there's a way that she could have not spurned Cristen Cole, but still follow through with this wedding?
I think he's too old-fashioned. I think that he had a whole idea in his head, and it's just totally incongruent with the reality of her situation, unless she had followed through with his plan. Which, again, the romantic in me, I'm like, do it!
The thing is, I feel like he still would have been broken. He still would have been hurt. But I think that she just said everything wrong in that moment. I think there was very much a thing of, she could have said things that would have led.
If she saw him a little better, like if she interrogated like what was actually going on with him with more earnestly.
Well, and I really think that this is the fault of her listening to Daemon, because she sees Daemon's philosophy as like, live how you want to live, do what you want to do, and consequences be damned. And she's sort of like, yeah, that's how I should live, rather than like, okay, how is this going to affect the people around me?
That's exactly what I thought when she was talking to Laenor.
Mm-hmm.
And where she's making the whole like open marriage relationship, it sort of calls back to their conversation where he's like, marriage is just a formality. To like, she's really operating the way Daemon would in that scenario.
Yeah,
which, maybe to her benefit, maybe not, but there's certainly a connection there.
And it's just sad because I really think if she would have handled that with more grace or thought about where he's coming from, rather than, because again, I think it's just showing a sign of immaturity from Rhaenyra.
Sure.
That's there.
Or at the very least, maybe she could have avoided him blowing up her wedding so much.
Yeah. And I know, like, I want to have this conversation, but we'll save it for the next episode because it will make more sense. I was really like confused how Sir Cristen Cole was not executed or not.
Well, if he's got the Queen's backing, that's a pretty strong ally.
It is, but the Velaryons had every right to call for.
Yeah, maybe they just gloss over that one. Or you say maybe we'll discuss it in the next episode?
Let's talk about it right now, if you don't mind. Like, I don't want to go on for too much longer, but this is what my thought process is. The king is clearly not well. The king is very sick, and he probably is not in a position to make any decisions. The queen is very much like, no, he's mine. Like, I think Alicent knows. Sir Cristen Cole is hers now. Like, she has full control and knows that he is going to be dedicated to her. And with how things are strained, I think that she could just maneuver everything. And as cold and coarse as this might sound, Corlys might be thinking like, well, okay, this is like, that's gone. Like, Joffrey is gone. Like, he has to be with Rhaenyra now. So
his old-fashioned brain.
I wonder if that, like, again, he's my boy. I love Corlys, but you almost wonder, like, is he like, well, you know, we gotta do what we can with this situation. Like, and it's
Okay, yeah.
again, like, it doesn't seem like it's something that would make too much sense, but in the moment, like, this second watch through, it makes more sense to me than the first watch through, because in the first time when I watched it, I'm like, there's no way he could have gotten away with this. But
Well, he's also just such a good character, even if that is sort of a hole in the plot, as the kids like to say. I'm willing to overlook it for good storytelling.
yeah. Is there anything else that you want to discuss other than shouting out two very significant actresses that we won't be seeing going forward?
You want a lightning round the wrap up here? Because I have 3 or 4 things.
I don't have anything else that I want to bring up.
Okay, I'll run this. So at the end of the episode, Viserys collapses.
Yes.
Right after the end, and it's a great shot where it
The rat.
pulls back to the rat, and the pool of blood is still there. Love it. When I watched this episode the first time, I thought he died. I was like, "That's it. Viserys is done," which is not the case. He's in the episode. There's a big time jump coming up, but he is in the next episode. Did you read it that way? Or I guess I was expecting the next episode to be like him on his deathbed and like he would die in the next 30 minutes or so.
See, I was spoiled initially and knew that there was going to be a time jump, so I knew that he didn't die right then. And so I knew that that was just him being unwell. So I can't say that crossed my mind, but like it's just emphasized to me that he's not doing well.
Yeah, it's a killer punctuation mark on the end of the episode there.
Yes. And it's just really showing how everything is getting to Viserys as well. Like,
For sure.
it's just a lot there.
Shout outs to our 2 girls, because again, I said there's a big time jump, and sadly, these characters are going to age out of what Millie Alcock and Emily Carey can pass for age-wise.
Yeah.
So hats off to both of them.
They did incredible jobs. Like,
Yeah, and I don't want it to, like, I don't want to even qualify it, because they're just great performers.
yeah.
And they are playing like younger characters, but they are young women who I think turned in some really strong work in this show.
They both did. I know that there was a lot of emphasis on Alicent this last episode, but Rhaenyra has had some really incredible, like last episode, she had some really incredible moments. In episode 3, she had some really incredible moments. Like both Millie Alcock and Emily Carey have just, like you said, we don't say that they're great child actors. They're great actresses. They did a phenomenal job, and I am sad that we're not going to see them going forward.
I'm a little bit crossing my fingers for like a flashback down the line, just like a little something, but I'm not counting on it.
And I will say this, I'm very impressed how well the actresses they picked out for the aged up characters.
Let's talk about it next episode.
I know, but I'm just leaving it at that.
So also at the end of our last episode, you teased that you knew whether or not Rhaenyra drank the tea.
I didn't tease it if I knew, but I think she didn't drink the
Okay,
tea.
can you do it in 30 seconds?
Not in this episode.
Oh, you're gonna do the double head cliffhanger?
I will say this time span, at most a month between the end of this episode and the end of last episode. A month, maybe a month and a half. That's the amount of time that's gone by. Because at the beginning of the episode of this episode and the end of last episode, like Otto was leaving, so there was no time. And I'll also point out, why is the king trying to get Rhaenyra out when he's going there himself? They're both going to like he's trying to get her out of the city or out from peering eyes, almost trying to quell any sort of rumors that could be going on. it's hard. Again, I'll dive into it next episode because we might have some physical evidence
Okay.
that presents itself.
I just remember you doing the tease, and I wanted to make sure you didn't forget. But if the whole picture comes into focus in the next, then we'll pick
Let's
up
just say there might be some biological evidence that we will be seeing.
Right on. Okay, then no dragons to discuss this episode,
No
so I guess we
dragons.
just got our fit picks.
Fit picks.
I'll start with my runner-up.
Okay.
My runner-up is Rhaenyra with the wedding fit. With the as we already mentioned, the rubies in the hair and the hair again with like the whole Targaryen thing, it's all in the hair and the do-up. Absolutely fantastic. Let me see. I made a note actually on all of this. Yeah, and it's like a bright wedding dress with the highlights, and that's my runner-up.
That's your runner-up. Okay. I have to say that my runner-up is Rhaenyra, but it's the fit that she has when Cole and her are talking on the boat.
Yeah. Because that's more like the black with like the gold accents. Mm-hmm. It's such a good look.
It's a really good look. Do you want me to go with my number one?
No, I'm going first because mine is Lady Alicent, and it ties in with. I mean it's just the capper on like our send off here to Emily Carey. That it's not just that the green dress looked great, the design, the wear, the all of it, but the way like what it represents, the way that it actually like makes such a huge statement to the like I don't know if another fit actually makes that declarative of a statement in the entire season. So
you're right.
It's the look, it's the story aspect, it's the synchronicity of it all. I have to give it to her.
I'll say this: you almost make me want to change mine, but I have to give it to Laenor. Like Laenor's wedding fit, it doesn't have the symbolism importance, but it just slapped. It looks so good.
It's excellent, and I'm not holding it against you at all. I feel like there are 15 different ways you could have taken it this episode.
Oh, for sure, but I almost you almost make me want to change my decision with especially that argument because you're absolutely right. Like it was an amazing fit, but Laenor with that silk, the black and the gold that he had, and just he rocked it.
Excellent.
And that's that. But Austin, where can they find us?
So do you want to let the wizard handle that one, or
the wizard
on the outro?
Well. Does the wizard tell us to look us up at Big Liz Pod?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he says it. That's it. He says, enjoyed yourself. Please join the squad. Follow on social media at Big Liz Pod.
Okay. I blanked on that.
Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. What am I missing?
Spotify.
Yeah. Your favorite podcatcher. You can follow me on Letterboxd at The Media Binge as well. My name is Austin. Anything you want to shout out, Bryce?
Just share it. Just listen to the wizard.
Oh, yeah. Comments for YouTube. Any prompts?
Favorite fit.
There we go.
Yeah. What's your favorite fit from the episode? And give us your reason why.
And feelings on Dark Neptune and lettuce. I feel like this is a major addition to our programming, but we'll let the audience decide.
Hey, well, if they disagree, they're wrong. But
it's our show.
All right. Well, good night, y'all.
See y'all next week.
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at Big Liz Pod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.